moving this additional chip work forward and really getting on with the effort of trying to draft a new version of the chip plan. So that's a big part of what this work is about. So I'm going to run through some information that kind of gives you a sense of how we got where we are, and then talk about what the next steps for this work are. So here's the agenda. Welcome and introductions. Just a quick look at ground rules and kind of what our expectations are in terms of your commitment. I want to do a very high level data review of some of the community health assessment data that's pertinent to the working age group, and then talk about what the next steps are and where we're going to go next. So let's do some introductions. Lori, can you see all the participants? I can't because I'm sharing my screen. Would you mind doing the roll call?
Sure. Go ahead, Sheriff Knoll.
Joe Knoll, the Sheriff of Jefferson County.
Nice to have the sheriff here. Jolene Cron.
Jolene Cron, I'm the Deputy Administrator and Clinical Director with the Salish Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization.
Thank you for spending another half hour with us. Peggy?
With the Affordable Housing Task Force, and I will say to this group, a parent of a working age adult who is in recovery.
Great. Chief McKern.
Cool Scene Fire to South End.
Melina.
Elena Stott, Outreach and Engagement Specialist with the Fletcher Group.
Chief Black.
Brett Black with EJFR.
Good to have you here. Apple Martine.
I'm Community Health Director for Jefferson County Public Health. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Testing my audio. Must have been the last meeting. And I, as a nurse, have worked with working age families for the entirety of my nursing career, so it's important to me.
Thank you for being here. Jim Novelli.
I think I'm in this group. I was sent an invitation for the elder age group. Maybe I'm in the working elder age, both groups. So.
Well, right now I have you in both, but if you don't want to be in both.
Okay, that's fine. I love meetings. So I mean, so I figured I was in the elder only because I'm so young. So, but that's okay. So.
Yeah, we thought you'd energize us. Anna McHenry.
I'm Anna McHenry, and I do behavioral health and developmental disabilities out of public health. And I wasn't going to be here because I'm in the elder group, but
Here you are.
Here she is. James Kennedy. James, I didn't acknowledge you at the last meeting, but I did see that you got in there. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I got in late. James Kennedy, Jefferson County Prosecuting Attorney and Coroner.
Thank you. Patrick Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Patrick Johnson, I'm with NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, Jefferson County affiliate.
And Lee Yoon.
I made it back. Yay.
Okay, so.
All right, thanks, Lori. Appreciate that. So these are kind of some ground rules. We're going to be meeting over the next 6 to 12 months, hopefully around 7 or 8 months, and just want to put some ground rules out there. So assume good intentions, try to be positive, focus on the issue, allow others to speak without interruptions, and that's particularly true in our unfortunate Zoom age that we're living in. All ideas are welcome. We want to, really get out of the box sometimes if we can. Try not to do side conversations, accept that your way may not be the only way. Try to be muted unless you're speaking. No one is more important than anyone else here. We kind of check our rank at the door when we come in, and make sure that we're all together before we move forward. And it may not be your idea or your way to do things, but once we make a decision as a group, the idea is that we move together as a group. And then the commitment of time, we're hoping that this is, a 30-minute meeting once a month. We really hope that you will be there regularly. We want, respect and trust. We want people to get on board, as I just talked about, and we want everybody to feel kind of valued and respected. And then the purpose is to really develop ideas that lead to improvement of health outcomes for Jefferson County. We want a lot of different agencies represented, a lot of different ideas and thoughts represented. We want to be as data focused as possible. At the end, we want a plan that's really actionable and concrete, and we want to have some timelines associated with that. And part of this work will be reviewing evidence-based research about the best practices for the health of working age in our community. Here's a little bit of a data review for you. So I want to show you kind of some information that was part of our community health assessment, and there was a little bit of work done on this working age band by a previous group. So this is just a reminder of the kind of the assessment, the process for the community health assessment. So we did an online and paper survey that we had an incredible response to. We had about 1,200 responses to the online survey. We did 3 community forums. We did 12 key informant interviews of people who are kind of important stakeholders of the health of our community. We looked at quantitative indicators. So there's quite a bit of quantitative data, about 160 data points in the full report, which I'd be happy to share with you if you need something to help you go to sleep at night. And then early, we took that to the joint board, which is the hospital board and the health department board together. We had some community conversations. And right now we're in the CHIP plan development, and then ultimately that plan will be proposed to the joint boards. This is basically just saying what I just said, so I'm going to skip over that. There was a group that looked at that community health assessment and tried to establish early priorities for the working age band. And these were we did some brainstorming about what the potential goals might be for improving the health of working age in our community. And they did some multi-voting, and these were the 3 that they came up with as the highest priority. Now that group has already agreed that this group gets to re-evaluate and see if those are still valuable, or whether you want to toss those and kind of come up with your own. But just so you know the history, they felt like improving access to behavioral health services, looking at the social determinants of health like housing, poverty, and transportation, and then look at the possibility of development of a crisis stabilization center. And then you can see some other ones that were rated below that. This is some information from that community health assessment. So this is from the survey that was sent out that we had about 1,200 responses. So these are the top 5 biggest day-to-day challenges for families. And we did some geographic comparison here, and you can see that between Jefferson County as a whole, Port Townsend and Tri-Area, pretty much all aligned, a little bit different in South County. And the top 5 were stress, income, physical activity, health problems, and housing. And then these are the 5 things that people felt like had the best chance of improving well-being. So more affordable housing, better jobs, better access to mental health care, less substance abuse, and less poverty. And you can see there's a little bit of a range throughout the county, but generally those 5 things often occur in all the distributions. I put this slide up not because it's so interesting, but just it'll help you to kind of understand how the rest of these slides are laid out. So this is looking at educational attainment in Jefferson County versus Washington State. And the bars to the right of that tell whether there's a statistically significant improvement in that. And then the bar that's below says whether Jefferson County is statistically significantly better than Washington State. So on this slide, even though we've improved, our improvement isn't statistically significant. Washington State, even though their improvement is less than ours because their numbers are greater, it is statistically significant, and we are better than Washington State in a statistically significant way. So that's just so help you kind of understand as you see the rest of these slides. I tried to look at slides that really impacted working age. This is employment status, and I think the thing that is pretty interesting in this slide is because we are the oldest county in Washington State by average age and one of the oldest in the United States, you can see that we have a very high percentage of people that are not in the labor force. Those are people who are retired or not old enough to work, but I think in Jefferson County, the majority of those people are retired. And then this is the percent employed and then the percent unemployed. And the reason Brennan, Queets, and Quilcene have asterisks is there weren't enough numbers for statistically significant data. So that's why that looks like that. This is poverty rate for Jefferson County. And yeah.
I think James Kennedy has a question.
Oh, sorry, James, go ahead.
Hey, John, I was just curious, within those different population areas, where do like people, Port Ludlow, Shine, and in that area, where do they get categorized as?
They're in the Chimacum area, the tri-area on this slide. That's where they're listed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So income and poverty, you can see while we are doing better, and just like Washington State, we compare poorly with Washington State. And I think the thing that I find a little alarming about this slide is the gap between Jefferson County and Washington State has increased over the last few years and is getting wider each year. So that's a little bit disconcerting. And then that also kind of plays into this slide, which is the affordable housing gap. And that looks at the average cost of a home versus the average cost of income and determines a gap there. And again, you can see the gap between Jefferson County and Washington State is getting quite a bit bigger, which is, again, a little bit alarming. This is homelessness in Jefferson County. And I think Lori and I have talked quite a bit about this slide, and I think we can agree that this data is really difficult to get and to have be accurate. But what this says is per 100,000 residents in our county, that 3 would be homeless. So we both believe that that number is a lot higher than that. Adults without health insurance, and kind of excitingly, you can see that this number is down and that we're doing better than Washington State as a whole. It's largely due to the Affordable Care Act, and it's really exciting to see that that number has gotten so much better over the last few years. And then this is adults with dental coverage, and this data was gathered before Jefferson Healthcare opened the clinic that accepts DSHS patients. So I'm hoping that this number has improved over the last year, but basically you can see that we are quite a bit worse than Washington State as a whole. And again, that gap is widening. So hopefully we'll see some improvement on that data with the opening of that clinic. And then this is smoking during pregnancy, which again, we're compare poorly to Washington State. It's one of the reasons I felt it was important to put this slide up. And you can see both Washington State and Jefferson County have made some improvement, but again, we don't compare favorably with Washington State. Gonorrhea case rate, I just kind of tried to put some outliers in here. And again, this rate is going up pretty significantly, both for Washington State and for Jefferson County. though we're a little bit better, we compare a little bit favorably to Washington State. And this is a little bit of good news. Jefferson County has had a significant increase in the number of people who are doing physical activity in their leisure time, and actually has a pretty high percentage. And I'd say, given the fact that by average age we're the oldest in Washington State, that's even more impressive that we 91% of our community has some leisure time physical activity. And again, kind of an outlier, a little bit of an area of concern. It's women getting cervical cancer screening. Both Washington State and Jefferson County are doing poorly, and we're doing really poorly compared to Washington State. So we're at 43% of people that are getting the screening appropriately. Washington State's at 70. So this is an area of potential improvement for us. So just wanted to give you kind of a high level overview of the data from the community health assessment. I will be sending out a packet that has for you the entire community health assessment, and feel free to kind of peruse through that and see whatever information that you come up with. I want to talk about kind of where we're going to go next. So again, you saw these slides earlier, so I'm just going to skip over them. One of the things we want to do is be aware of what's going on in the intergovernmental agency and what they're looking at. So this is their plan, and with a little bit of a crosswalk, and you can see where it matches with the working age. So this is in your packet. You might want to spend some time to review that. So what's going to happen next is you'll be getting a packet. The packet will show you the goals that I showed you in an earlier slide that were identified by the community health assessment, the group that reviewed the community health assessment data. The packet will include a template to show you how we use what's called the strategic results framework, which I'll put up here in a second. We would like to work with each team to establish goals and strategies and activities for each of those goals. We'd like the team to come up with 2 to 3 goals. One of the things that Lori and I are painfully aware of is that we bit off so much in the last CHIP plan that it really was almost impossible to achieve all the activities that were in there. There were some 309 activities in the entire CHIP plan last time. So we want to try to keep the goals down and keep the activities at something that are fairly reasonable to achieve. We'll be using the framework for developing those plans. And then ultimately, we will be rewriting the CHIP plan and presenting that to the joint boards. So this is a list of the items that are on that strategic framework, which I'm going to show you in a second, and a little bit of definition. Thought this might be helpful to you as you review that strategic framework and start to think about goals, objectives, strategies, activities, that kind of thing. And then when you think of goals, you know, one of the acronyms that we like to apply to that is that we want them to be SMART. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time oriented. So this is what that strategic framework looks like. And if you look on the Be Healthy Jefferson, the CHIP website, you can see what the previous strategic frameworks look like with goals, objectives, strategies, and activities. What we'll be doing over the next 6 months is basically filling this out for the working age band. Again, we'll be trying to establish 2 to 3 goals, and then what are the strategies and activities to make that goal happen. So I want you to start getting your head around the idea of, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? What are the high-level goals that we want to achieve? And then what are the strategies and activities to make that happen? So that was a fire hose coming at you for a few minutes, but I wanted to, give you some background about what our task was and kind of where we are. I think at this point, I'm curious as to your thoughts about that process and if you feel like you're up for helping us to do that work. So at this point, I'll open it up for comments from anyone.
I felt like I was up to it till I saw all that stuff you just showed. That's a joke. And also, I wanted to say, as our introduction, as far as introductions went and what you said after that, I wanted to change mine from being the sheriff to I'm Joe Knoll that works at the sheriff's office.
But you are the sheriff.
That's a little sheriff's joke, but yeah. Yeah, it seems like that I think most of us here have done this stuff before. I forgot about. It's like, oh darn, I got to remember the difference between an objective and a strategy and a goal. And but I think with all of our heads working together, we should be able to figure that out. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can, make fairly short work of this. I'm excited to work with all of you, and I've done this work a number of times, and it's actually kind of exciting to know that you have an opportunity to shape how we deal with the health of our community for the next few years. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Yeah, go ahead, Apple.
I'll just add that from a public health perspective, especially with, the work that the nurses on our team do, as well as community health educators, et cetera, our staff is really versatile in terms of the services that we provide. But I think that given the types of things we offer through the health department, there are numerous practical applications of ways to help maybe attenuate some of those data points you just shared with us. And I like that you have constrained them. You picked out sort of the outliers because there's so much data in the CHA data course, which is great. But as you've said, constraining what we do and being very targeted and focused in order to achieve it is really kind of the lesson learned. So I'm really ready to do that. And I think I feel motivated to offer some real practical applications to help. And I mean, I wrote down 2 that I have direct applications to help in with smoking during pregnancy and cervical health, which are certainly things that we are very responsible for attending to here with our services. So I would like to be part of that think tank, and then the actualizing of it is really your jobs as facilitators in helping us keep focused and keep things clear and moving forward.
Oh darn.
You can do it. I'll give ideas.
I'm planning on that too, of that, yeah, that help.
Other thoughts or questions?
Hi, Melina here from the Fletcher Group. I'm particularly interested in the homelessness and behavioral health elements of this work, and also super curious to know what systems are in contact with the individuals that we are trying to help, and is that information available through the data?
I think one of the short answer to your question is I don't think we have good contact with the people who really require these services, and I think that's kind of a shortcoming of a group like this. Is it would be nice to have representation from the people who actually need the services. So maybe that's part of some work that we can do to think about how to get that information, how to have somebody represented on this group that does need those services and could be helpful to us. Yeah, so let's think about that as we move forward.
Yeah, I'm particularly interested in the element of reach and then understanding what specifically the people we're trying to reach need, right? And that may not necessarily mean that they participate in this group, but maybe that we work with people who have reached to those individuals that we're trying to help.
Yeah, I still don't, I think it's always should be a goal to try to have representation of the people that you're serving in a group. So if we can think of a way to do that, I think that would be awesome.
I think a lot of the,
go ahead, Lori.
I think that there are other groups, of course, working on some parts of this. So of course, there's the Affordable Housing Task Force that's working at that out of last week came the subtask of working on data gathering and connection. So this group could be a place that reaches out to the different groups that are working on different aspects of this and pulling it all into one place and thinking about it from the health improvement perspective.
And I think that's another lesson that Lori and I have learned, over the course of trying to implement the previous community health improvement plan is that, we don't have to be all things to all people, but I think it's important that we recognize the work that's going on in our community and align with it whenever we can. So part of the work of this group will be to identify, what's going on in housing, what's going on in transportation. I mean, if those are the goals we pick, it's identifying other efforts that are going on in our community and making sure that we're aligned with them. So we just have a couple minutes left. So I'm going to give you kind of a homework assignment, which is if you could come to the next meeting having spent a little bit of time looking at the data and trying to establish in your mind what the top 2 or 3 goals for working age band in our community for the next 3 to 5 years might be. So if you could each write down, a few goals, and when we get together next time, what I'd like to do is just go around the room, have each person talk about their top 2 or 3 goals, and then we'll kind of put all those up on a sticky note and have some discussion about that, and then probably at the meeting after that, see if we can identify the top 2 or 3 that we can all come to consensus on. So that's what'll be happening at the next few meetings.
And you're going to send out the data.
I'm going to send out the data and that strategic framework basically for you to look at between now and that. And if you want to write it on that, that's print it out and write it on that, that's great. But even if you just use a little sticky note and write it down, but just put some thought into that, because that's really the first thing that we have to do is pick 2 or 3 goals that we want to go after, and then we can start thinking about what the strategies and activities to accomplish those goals are. And that's actually kind of the fun part, but it's hard to trim it down, and we always have a tendency to say, oh, we just need to add one more goal, and then pretty soon we have 7 and it's impossible to achieve all that. So that'll be kind of Lori's and my job to keep it real, I guess. So all right, well, I think we're at about 4:30. So again, my goal will be to keep this to 30 minutes following our meeting, and I hope that it works for you to just have this as a follow-on to the BHC, because it seemed like it's better than just having another extra meeting. So if that works for you guys, we'll keep that format. Sheriff Knoll, did you have a question?
You answered my question. I was wondering if the meetings were still going to be after the regular meeting.
Yeah, I think that's our hope, unless somebody tells us this just doesn't work for them. I
like it that we're already here. And what's another half hour? They're still going to be to a half hour, is that right?
Yeah. I'm gonna try to keep my promise on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for attending, and I'm looking forward to doing this work with you. I think it's really exciting work, and I truly believe that the work of CHIP has made an improvement in our community, and I think if we get the right things down on paper, we can continue that momentum that we've built up over the last few years. So thanks for being involved, and we'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
See everybody.